Mike Moore, and this past April was my 40th year here. I've been here under three different ownerships, three different. I've seen a little bit of everything in my 40 years here. My background was in building materials and lumber. Went behind the ears as far as wood windows go, but I had sold, building material products. So I didn't come in just exactly all green. almost 41 years ago, 1983, 82, something like that. I just answered a blind ad. I was pretty well stuck in my position in the building material part. And so I wanted to change, and I answered that blind ad. And Gerald called me on the phone and invited me in for an interview, and it went great from there. What drew me to that ad was it mentioned something about calling on architects primarily, and that sounded interesting. Starting back with Gerald Horton, it was basically a pretty new company for him, and he was pretty hands-on, and he was very good to work for, and he gave me all the opportunities. The only problem was it was just I was one of two salesmen at that time, and the other salesman was his son, which his son wasn't very motivated, and so I didn't learn much from his son. And as a matter of fact, we were almost like rivals. I mean, he always thought I was trying to steal his contractors. All I was trying to do is take care of them because he wouldn't. And so that was the only conflict I had there. But it was a very good learning experience. When I say learning experience, our training manual was a suites catalog. So my first day here, he hands me the catalog and he said, well, here it is. And one thing that I've always enjoyed with the ownerships here, I mean, if you're doing your job, they will back you up. And that's all I need was just back up, because you get into certain situations where, man, it was way over my head. I didn't know if I could do something or not. That was up to the owners, and they've always supported me. So I've always appreciated that from them. The thing about it that's kept me going, every job is different, and it brings in new, every job it's not a problem, but it's something that you have to really, every job is different. Is what I'm trying to say. And it kind of keeps you on your toes. The computer age. When I started 40 years ago, we actually had an inventory here. Pella didn't have the deep products that they have now, so we actually had an inventory. And if you sold something, you manually wrote it out of a book. I mean, talking about archaic the way it is now. So that's how it was. And I can remember doing big jobs where you actually had to draw the windows and show how they opened, or draw the door and show how it opened. I mean, wow. I'm about, early caveman, but that's how it was back then. It was so much paperwork. I'd never taken a computer course in my life. It would just get down there and doing it, and then making mistakes and then learning from the mistakes. And I used to wear them out. I mean, I would be down in Tommy's office, or I'd ask, one of the support people here that was savvy on computers, man, what am I doing? What do I need to do? So, over time, period of time, and I know they were sick of it, but dadgummit, I was determined to learn it, because, man, I'd have contractors call me and want to make a change, and man, I didn't even know how to make a change, but boy, I do now, baby. I was thinking when I knew that this was coming up, of all the customers and homeowners and architects that I've dealt with over these last 40 years, and there's just, I mean, I could count on one hand the undesirable people that I've dealt with. I mean, 99.5% have just been wonderful, been great. And I really get a great satisfaction knowing that I'm furnishing them a service, plus I'm presenting my product to them, and they are completely happy. They are happy. Sometimes when one door shuts, there'll be two doors open for you. I mean, I've had it the same that lose a job, and then all of a sudden I hadn't heard from this builder in 3 years, and he said, hey man, I got a big project, so it works out. We've had a cast of characters come through here. Of course, I guess I'm probably a character too, but I can remember one salesman we had that when Arkansas Razorback football team was in the Southwest Conference, he was actually a football official. I mean, he was big time. And he'd work here during the week, and then he'd leave out early Friday afternoon or wherever it was that he had to go to call a football game that Saturday. I thought that was always very interesting. We've I can his name was Ronnie Underwood. He's passed on now, but he played at Arkansas and he was a football official. He's one that stands out to me. The main lesson that I learned and is to be honest with people. I learned a long time ago. I mean, return your calls. That makes people so mad when you don't at least return their call. It may be bad news, but return their call. I've learned that. Another thing is to be honest with them. I mean, if they're asking me to do something that I can't do or the factory can't do, I'm just upfront with them and said, look, everything that Pella makes is warranty, and this is why they don't make this particular product because they cannot warranty. My wife has been very supportive, and she works. She's with the IRS, no less, and so she's been very supportive, and she realizes that not every day is going to be a great day. There's been some days better than other days. I always look for the more positive, but I get support from my family, and they know this is a good, solid business. So I've been a good supporter for them too. From my earnings and stuff that it's just been solid. First of all, it doesn't come. Success doesn't come overnight. I mean, this is something that you have to work at. You have to, this is a relationship type business, and you have to build relationships. And so it's not going to come overnight. It's the old saying it's like selling insurance. You have to start somewhere. But the bottom line is, first of all, you got to know your product, and not only know your product, but you need to know the history of the product and what was presented before, because you'll get a lot of questions out there. Well, now my mother and dad had Pella windows, and they had this and this and this. Oh, well, that's no longer available. Product has changed, so you have to know some history about Pella too. So you need to know the product, a little bit of the history of the company, and kind of focus where you're trying to go. I was thinking over my 40 years, I have probably sold close to, I'm probably in the $60 million range of how much Pella that I've actually sold. And that's Pella product, not installation. That's an actual Pella product. So I'm proud of that, Mark. And I'm also proud that I've always, I'm an old ball player, and I was always consistent, in my fielding, my batting, and everything. I was always consistent. Not a superstar, but I was right close. So consistency, I think I'm more proud of that than anything. And man, we have weathered some storms here, from 911, and there's been recessions that we've had to go through and kind of pull our sleeves up and scratch our head. What are we going to do now? So I feel like I've kind of got the history that I've just stayed with it. Just stayed with it. One of these days, when I look back on my history, and I've talked to a lot of people outside Pella of it, and they said, "You've been with one company 40 years," and I said, "Yes, I have." And they said, "Man, it must be a remarkable company." Plus, it is. That's what makes our company so strong. All of our salespeople are different. We have different things. We sell different. What works for me might not work for one of the other salesmen, and so I think that makes it stronger to have a good mix of people, because if everybody was the same, we'd be just robots around here. Business 40 years ago and what business is now is like night and day. I mean, they don't even resemble each other. So, and I've always used a cockroach. I'm like a cockroach. You have to adapt. You have to adapt. And I feel like I've adapted.